Hello folks, welcome back to Merrill Math. I'm Mr. Merrill, and today's lesson we're going to be talking about factoring non-monic trinomials using a method called U-Substitution. So there was a video that I posted recently about factoring non-monic trinomials using a method about, it uses factoring by grouping. And this method is more complicated, but it's easier. I don't think that makes any sense. It's a simpler method if you understand the algebra involved. Otherwise, it's a really easy method to get lost in. So again, we have these trinomials that are in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So they're non-monic, which means our leading coefficient is something other than 1. So it could be, anything. And our other two, our coefficient and our constant term here are other numbers. The signs could be positives or negatives, any combination there. Now, the difference between this method and the other one is this uses a little bit of substitution. What we do is we take this trinomial and we turn it into something that is a monic trinomial using a substitution. So we sort of let our x term and a coefficient equal some u value, and then we substitute in, and it ends up being a monic trinomial, which are easier to solve. But again, this is a really algebra-heavy method. So what we're looking for are a couple of criteria. So the leading coefficient, this a, it has to be a square number. And the second coefficient, or b, must have a factor of the square root of a. If it doesn't have either of those, then we sort of have to force them to we have to force them to with algebra. So let's look at some examples here to kind of make this a bit clearer. Okay, so example 1, we have 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. Now this, what we have here, this expression, if we notice our 4 in front, this is a square number, so we're looking for, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, and so on. We're looking for numbers that are square. This has a factor of the square root of 4, which is 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this just a square term. So we're going to say, we're going to take the square root of a here, which is 4, and we're going to take the square root of x squared, which is x, and we're going to do something here. So we're going to say, let u equal 2x. So that means that u squared is equal to 2x times 2x, which is 4x squared. So what that means is we can start to substitute some things into our original expression. 4x squared is u squared. So this becomes u squared. I think my marker's dying. We've got u squared, and we've got, let's see, u is 2x. So here we have, well, what is this? It's 4x. Here we have 2x. We need to multiply that by 2 in order to get 4x. So this becomes 2u plus 1. So this is now a monic trinomial. U squared is 4x squared. 2 times 2x is 4x, plus 1 is plus 1. Now it's monic, and it's easier to factor. So we're looking for factors of 1 that add up to 2. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So this becomes u plus 1 times u plus 1, which gives us, now once we have this, we're not completely done yet because we've substituted. Now at the end, we have to substitute back. So if we have u plus 1 times u plus 1, this is actually, u, remember, is 2x. 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. So that is our factored form of 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 using U-substitution. So it's a little bit simpler. There's fewer steps than using the factoring by grouping and all of that stuff, where you multiply the first and last terms and then split this guy and do all of that stuff. There's fewer steps here, but it is a bit more algebra heavy. Again, if you have a super picky math teacher, some of us kind of are, you could also write this as 2x plus 1 squared. Okay, that's example 1. Let's take a look at a couple more. So, and we're back. I had to do a bit of a battery change in the middle of the video here. So, but by the magic of editing, you didn't notice any of that. So our next example here, we have this expression 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. Now, we note that this is a square number. 4 is square, just like we talked about in the last example. But the square root of 4 is 2, and that doesn't go into 5. So what we have to do, and hopefully I've left myself enough room here, is we have to take this whole thing and multiply it by a number to make this a square number, but also have the square root of this be a factor of this. So what do I mean by all that? Well, we're just going to multiply everything by 4 because that's the number that's here. So we're going to multiply here by 4 across this whole thing. So this all becomes a 16x squared plus 20x minus 24. So we multiply by 4, multiply by 4, multiply by 4. Now, notice what we had to do was multiply by 4. Something that is useful to do when you're doing this is at the bottom, we have to remind ourselves once we get to the end to divide by 4. So this is sort of the tricky part of using your U-Substitution method, is that sometimes we can get lost in the numbers here and sort of lose sight of what we're doing. But as long as we keep track of the steps, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to get lost. Okay, so we have to let u equal something. So what do we have here? Well, we're going to take the square root of this and the square root of that. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of x squared is x. 4x. So that means u squared is 16x squared, which replaces this. So I have u squared plus, now 4x is u, this is 5 of those. So we have 5 times 4x is 20x. So we have 5u minus 24. So now we're looking for factors of 24 that combine to make 5. That's going to be 8 and negative 3. This is a negative 24, so this is the distance between them. Okay, I don't want to run out of room here. I'm going to go this direction. So we have, what do we have? We have u minus 8 and u plus 3. Now remember, u is 4x. So we're going to substitute back. I'm going to move down to this row here. 4x minus 8 and 4x plus 3. So remember that we multiplied by 4 up here. We have to divide that 4 out down here. Now, the way that we can do this, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Sometimes you can take that whole 4 out of just one of the terms. So in this case, I can divide this by 4 and that by 4 and get x minus 2 and 4x plus 3. Sometimes, like if you have 6 or something, if you had to multiply by 6, you might be able to take a 2 out of one of the factors and a 3 out of the other, just so long as the numbers that you take out end up multiplying to get the number that you've done here. Now, we had to take the 4 out of that because I couldn't take a 2 out of this and a 2 out of that because the 3 is odd. So this is going to be our factored form of 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. Okay. Last example, these are scary looking numbers. We have 18x squared minus 9x minus 14. Okay, So we need to make 18 into a square. Now, one thing we could do, which I don't recommend, is multiplying everything by 18. It would work, but that would be really messy, and I don't know off the top of my head what 14 times 18 is. 18 squared is 324. 18 times 9 would be, I don't know, 162 or something. But this one I don't really have I don't really have memorized off the top of my head. So there's an easier way. We just need to make this into a square number. Well, if we're thinking about square numbers, we're thinking 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. 18 goes into 36. So what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply by 2. And at the bottom, we're going to remind ourselves to divide by 2 once we get down there. And we're going to go ahead and use our distributive property here. We've got 36x squared minus, now if you're going to make a mistake, it's probably going to be in this step. So you have to be really careful when you're multiplying these out. So 2 times negative 9, that's negative 18x. And then we double 24, that's minus 28. Okay. So here we have 36x squared minus 18x minus 28. We know the drill now. We're going to let u be something. So the square root of this is 6. The square root of x squared is x. That means u squared is 36x squared. And this 18, now notice 18 is divisible by 6. That worked out nicely. So we have u squared minus, here we have 6 times 3 is 18, so it's going to be 3u minus 28. So we're looking for factors of 28 that are 3 apart. That's going to be 7 and 4. So we have u minus 7 and u plus 4. Negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. Negative 7 times positive 4 is negative 28. And then we have to substitute back. So u is 6x. So we have 6x minus 7 and 6x plus 4. There are a lot of places where you can make mistakes in this process, but as long as you understand the algebra involved, we're just substituting something, substituting back. You have to be really careful to make sure you maintain your signs, and when you substitute back, make sure you substitute the right number. There have been occasions where I've substituted back and kind of been in a hurry and didn't get that substituted back right. Okay, so we have to divide by 2. Now 2 is a nice number to divide by because we just have to look for one of these factors with an even number here in both of the terms. So we've got a 6 and a 4 here. So my 6x minus 7 stays the same. This we're going to divide by 2, so that's 3x plus 2, and that's it. So that is another method for factoring non-monic trinomials. Hope it helped. If it didn't, or if you want me to go through some more examples of stuff like this, it's a kind of a complicated process. The algebra, it's very algebra heavy. But it makes life a little bit simpler, and it really eliminates a lot of the guess and check that unfortunately a lot of teachers still teach. Okay, thanks for watching.